Thank you, Joe. I am happy to be back for another money and media coaching session. So let's jump right into it. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me, Andy.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here, and thank you for helping us out to learn how to improve our SEO. So before we bring our lucky FinConner in, I thought I'd ask a little bit of questions to you about your story. So tell me how you got kickstarted with blogging in the first place.
Yeah, so I got started, I would actually call them niche sites. Probably your audience is familiar with that term. It's very similar to blogging. It's setting up websites and trying to rank them and earn money with them from affiliate marketing. I give all credit for my start to Pat Flynn. I don't know, your readers will probably know he did something. It was called the Niche Site Challenge, like way back in maybe 2011, 2012. It was all about setting up a website and trying to get traffic through Google and then make money through affiliate marketing. So that's really where I, quote unquote, started, right, with these tiny little, not so great little niche sites. I think my first one that saw success was randomly like in the vacuum niche, as stupid as it sounds, reviewing vacuum cleaners and trying to rank that in Google. That was kind of my first taste of building out a site, not technically a blog, but along the same lines, where I started learning about SEO and kind of ranking sites in Google and then making money with affiliate marketing. So that's kind of where I started. And then I've built my share of sites like that. I've sold a few of them. I run more professional looking sites now. I do have a personal finance site, which we can talk about if you want. But that's really where it started back in the Pat Flynn when he was doing this thing. Again, this is probably at least 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years ago. But yeah, that's where it started.
I think a lot of us can appreciate Pat Flynn and bringing us all into this world. He was one of the guy who brought me into podcasting for sure, among other folks for sure. But so talk to me about why he says and why you definitely practice that riches are in the niches.
Yeah, I am a big fan of niching down, right? So I think it's good in order to attract an audience, regardless of Google, right? Just connecting with your audience. And we can talk with Tricia about this. She has a very niched down focus, which I think is great. I think it's easier to attract fans or an audience or readers when you're really dialed in, right? So I try to do that with my personal finance site, which is all about credit, right? And it's really about bad credit or people who have bad credit and they're trying to improve their credit scores, right? So that's kind of my audience there. And then I have an SEO blog as well, right? And that's all about bloggers who want to learn SEO. I don't teach Pinterest. I don't teach Facebook ads. I don't teach funnels, right? All this other digital marketing stuff, right? Which some people do. They try to teach 10 different things, but I do like to niche down so you can stand out. And I do think that's important.
So not only are you building sites that are very niche down, you personally in your small business have niched yourself into an online marketing space as well.
Exactly right. Because when you think about the online marketing space, it's crowded with so many people, right? So not only do I niche down with my expertise, which is SEO, right? So again, I don't talk about Pinterest, I don't talk about Facebook ads, but I also niche down with who I'm targeting as an audience, right? Because other people do SEO, Brian Dean and Neil Patel and all these huge figures, and they target, e-commerce store owners or SEO agency type people. That's not my audience. Like my audience are bloggers who use Pinterest, right? So I'm trying to niche down in my expertise and also niche down with my audience. So kind of niching down 2 levels. And I have found that's been really helpful.
Awesome. Well, tell me about what some results you've had as a blogger, as somebody who's niched down, and what people can experience by doing that themselves.
I started this credit site. It's called credittakeoff.com, right? More just as a case study for my students inside my SEO course, right? Because I wanted to show them with a live example, right? As I'm building out my site, this is how I do it. So I started it as a side project in the beginning of 2019, I think, right? So it's about 16 or 18 months old right now, right? So we're in the middle of May recording this. It should do $10,000 this month, just with affiliate marketing, just as a side project. It's all SEO and affiliates. I don't do Facebook ads myself, right? Or I'm not running ads on the site. I'm not selling a product on the site. It's just getting traffic from Google And on some of those pages, I have affiliate links. Your audience knows how this works. And then I make money with affiliate links. So that's up to about 10,000 a month. I do have one writer that I use. So I'm outsourcing most of it, to be honest. But again, I wanted to build that to show my students inside my SEO course, this is how I like to build a site. This is how I like to write my content. This is how I like to build links. And again, it's more of a case study, but it's turned out to be a decent side hustle income as well, which always helps.
Excellent. Well, I know a lot of that is about gaining traffic to those articles that you're having produced on your site. So I think that's a good segue for us to bring in our friend Tricia Rosen, who is a new solo-owned registered investment advisor. And Tricia's goal is to help families who are looking for a fee-only financial advisor to find her, and then that way she can start building her sales funnel. So let's welcome Tricia to the show. So welcome to the show, Tricia.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent, Tricia. I'm so glad you participated. We found each other in the Facebook chat, and we're helping you win. And by doing this call, everybody, our goal is to have everybody win, too, because we're learning how to improve our SEO together. So, Tricia, I touched on it a little bit there. You talked about you're a fee-only financial advisor. Talk about what type of advisor you are and how you are proceeding with that as a new registered investment advisor.
Sure. So I am, as you said, a fee-only fiduciary registered investment advisor. So I don't receive any commissions of any kind. My ideal client and the families that I work with, typically they'll have a special needs beneficiary, special needs loved one that they're caring for as well. So they're not only planning for their own financial goals, but they also need to consider another person who will rely on them not only during their life, but after they're gone as well. So there's a lot of extra layers to it. I myself have a special needs son, so I'm very much immersed in the world. And it's a very gratifying field to be in.
Yeah. Mike and I and you, we connected a little bit on email beforehand and shared a bit of the details of your business. So he's had a chance to jump in. I'm going to go a little bit silent now and let this coaching call happen. Mike, why don't you take it away from here? You know a little bit about Tricia and her goals, and I'll let you do your thing.
All right, cool. So I did a little pre-work just to keep this conversation going, because SEO can be, I don't want to say complex, but it can involve a lot of things, right? So I just have a little outline here of things that I want to go through with you, maybe ask you a few questions. Certainly, if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer it. But I'm just going to follow along on the document here and kind of talk this stuff out, right? So the way that I like to break SEO down is kind of into 4 phases, which I have outlined here. We'll go through each one pretty quickly, but I'm going to want to focus on this phase 2 and phase 3 more, because they're really the most important parts. And after looking at your site, probably the areas where you could, see some results, right? So phase 1 is really, these are kind of the easier wins, right? This is kind of how your website is structured. Do you have a niche, right? We talked about niche a lot. I love the fact that you have a very dialed in niche. This is not only good for attracting clients, but it's also good for Google, right? Google loves to see that, you're writing articles around the same topic over and over again, not the exact same topic, but the general niche. So I love that you're niched down, right? So that's something that you're doing very well right off the bat. One thing that you want to keep an eye on and, eventually maybe take a look at this is your site speed. This is basically how fast does your website load, right? So I pulled you up in this. It's a free tool. What it does is it assesses how fast your website is, right? There's a lot of things that can go into this, like your web host, images. We don't really have the time to go into all of the details. But the bottom line is that when someone pulls up your website on their phone or on their laptop, they're going to want it to load relatively fast, right? Because just think about yourself. When you're loading a website, you don't want to wait 10 or 20 seconds for the content to load, right? So I did a test. It's called the web page test. .org, and it's saying that your site, took almost 10 seconds to load, right? They flagged you as a red. It's just something, we're not going to resolve this on this call, but I just wanted to flag that for you. is to, if you have a chance, maybe email your host. I put someone that I recommend. His name is Grayson Bell. He's actually part of the FinCon community if you wanted to hire this out. But he's someone who could help you with that site speed. But again, just a quick flag for something to keep your eye on. Again, not only for users, but Google wants our websites to load fast because Google wants happy users, right? So that's just a quick thing I wanted to mention at the top. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. And I know I'm guilty of, I think I slowed down the site because I wanted a video on the homepage. So I loaded it myself, and I'm sure it's not optimized the way it should be.
Okay. Yeah, again, it's not like a humongous thing, but Google has gone on the record that, they're very, I'm not going to say site speed's the biggest, most important thing, but it's definitely something that they look at. And again, it's also good for people who you're trying to get clients, happy Google, happy users. So again, that's just a very quick thing. I want to spend more time on this kind of phase 2, which I call design, which is not like visual design, but designing the content, right? Like a content plan on topics and articles and keywords that you're going to go after, right? So what are you going to write about basically on your blog? We want to be very intentional with the topics that we're writing about, with the keywords that we're going after, because we don't want to write stuff that no one is searching for, right? And I'll show you kind of how to look this up, and there's free tools that you can use. We want to write about topics that they're going onto Google and they're searching for that topic, right? That's how we get visitors from Google to our site. I know it sounds incredibly obvious, but a lot of people don't do this. We want to write about topics that have search demand, right? There are a couple of ways to do this. The best way, and the way that I like to do this, and we talked a little bit this offline, is to kind of think about other sites maybe in your direct niche or in a related niche that have a presence on Google, right? That they get traffic from Google. So I did a little work ahead of time. And so I found 2 websites here, right? So I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, Kitses. Right?
Yeah, he's like the pinnacle of social media leverage in the advisor space.
Okay. So social media, and I also noticed that Google is sending him traffic as well, right? So he's got it going on in terms of his blog. Another blog or a website that I found that has a pretty good presence on Google as well. It's called Special Needs Answers, and they have a specific section here around financial planning. I don't know if you've heard of this site, but I just kind of uncovered it when I was doing a little research.
I do know the organization. They're primarily attorneys that work with special needs families, and there's a few advisors in there as well.
So the idea here is that we kind of want to see what they're writing about and, what topics are performing well for them in Google, right? And kind of an analogy that I would give is like if you were to open a diner in your town, right? And there was a very successful diner maybe the next town over, right? And they had got a lot of customers that are making a lot of money. And if we somehow knew maybe the top 5 items on their menu, right? The 5 best sellers, whether it's like a Greek salad or an omelet or whatever, right? And if you knew what those items were, you could make your own version of those items as well, right? Because you knew that people wanted it. You knew that it could make you money or get you traffic, right? That's kind of the idea. So we want to uncover those menu items for these other sites. Now, we're not going to copy their content or steal their content or anything like that. You're going to make your own recipe to go along with the analogy, right? Just because someone else is making a Greek omelet, well, you can make your own, right? And it's going to be unique. And so to bring that back to the content side, we want to look at the very popular topics and then write your unique article about it, your unique viewpoint, your unique blog post, right? So the content is still going to be unique. It's going to be all you, but the topic we know will have demand. And I can show you concrete examples. I know that might be a little confusing, but that's like the theory or the strategy behind this is to identify those popular diners, see what those dishes are, and then you make your own dish. But we know that they're already popular. Does that make sense?
That does. That makes a lot of sense. There's certain topics that will be top of mind that are evergreen, and certain topics that will be top of mind because of a recent tax law change or something and that's what people are looking for. And you want to be there to have something when they're looking.
Exactly. Okay. So now I'm going to use a tool that I use. We don't have, just because it's going to be more efficient for me to do this on the call. You don't have to use this tool. Offline, I can send you some alternatives. Now, this is a keyword tool or a SEO tool. And what it allows you to do, you can plug in any website on the internet, and it's going to spit out, right? Here are the most popular blog posts on this website that does well in Google. I'm not talking about Pinterest or Facebook or any social media. I'm only talking about Google, right? So in this, and again, I'm going to mispronounce his name. I apologize if you're in FinCon, Kitses, right? Kitses.com. Right, so you see I've plugged his site up at the top right here. Now, not all of these are going to be relevant. And again, I don't know your niche as well as you do, but this is telling us, for example, like backdoor Roth IRA, for example, if you can see this keyword over here, right? Mm-hmm. So this is according to this tool, it's his 6th most popular post. And again, this might not be relevant to you, which is fine, but I just want to kind of get the idea out there. So this is telling us, here is the 6th most popular post on his blog. It's giving him the 6th most traffic. Here's what the topic is about. It's about backdoor Roth IRAs. And what you can do is open it up and you can see what he's writing about. Now, obviously, if this were your niche, and maybe it's not, you could write your own topic or your own article with your unique point of view, your unique spin on Roth IRAs, right? In the way that I build out my sites and my students build their sites, we create a long list of competitors, right? So I only have one guy here or one other website, but I might put 10 sites in here or 15 sites, and just to give you ideas, right? Now, not all of these are going to be, again, necessarily relevant to your niche, right? Medical sharing plans, I don't know, but it's just to get the ideas flowing on what people are searching for and what other sites are seeing success with, right? So instead of randomly writing about topics that we think people might be interested in, we're kind of reverse engineering the success or how other sites are getting traffic, right?
Could you dive into the numbers? So you see things like volume and traffic. Yeah. Like, what do those mean to help us understand the validity of that?
Let me go through the numbers. So just to be clear, this is a tool. It's called Ahrefs. They're basically they're looking at every keyword in their database and who's ranking for that keyword, and they're going to approximate. This first column is traffic, right? So I want to be clear. They're approximating that Kitses is getting 4,000 visitors per month from Google for this post, right? Again, just an approximation. This is not like it's their Google Analytics. So this first column is, right, estimated traffic from Google per month. I don't pay attention to the value here. The keywords is, this post is ranking for 86 different keywords in Google, just this one post. This column is saying, out of the 86 keywords that they're ranking for, the top keyword or the keyword bringing the most traffic, amazingly, he's ranking for advisor, which is very, very broad. That's very impressive. This column is just saying that this keyword advisor has 125,000 searches per month. And the last column is saying, well, for this keyword advisor, he's ranking, at the time this was pulled up, number 4 in Google. It can feel like a lot when you're just first looking at it, but once you start to play with these tools, what I really want you to focus on are kind of the keywords and then the posts themselves. Like, what are they writing about? What is the topic? What do people want to know about? And this is a valuable way to kind of reverse engineer this, again, because this tells us, right? Like, here are 10 competitors and here are their top traffic pages from Google. So it kind of helps you build in reverse instead of trying to guess, right? We don't want to guess what we think people might be interested in, because it's going to lead you to wasting or spending a lot of time creating content that people might not be interested in. Again, this is one way to do this. And I want you to think of SEO, Tricia, kind of as a competition, friendly competition. If you think of Google, every keyword or any keyword that you type into Google, there's only 10 spots, right, on page 1 of Google, and rarely does anyone go past page 1. So you're going to be competing, for lack of a better word, with other sites for that traffic or for those keywords. So I think it's helpful to get into that mindset where I want to create better content than my competitors. Again, more of a friendly competition, but just to start to think of it that way. Because again, there's only 10 spots on the front page of Google. But this is one way that I think will help you kind of uncover topics that people are actually searching for. Again, offline, I can send you a different tool, which is free or a lot cheaper than the tool that I use. But I just, again, for efficiency reasons, I wanted to show you on my screen what I was talking about. Does that make sense? I'm sure you might have a question or two about that, but.
Yeah, that looks really robust. As you said, I'm sure if I look at it and get into it, I would be able to make more sense of it. But at least it shows keywords that they're looking at and the articles that are most popular. I can always click through and see the article.
Exactly, right. And I have the same thing pulled up for that other site, Special Needs Answers. So I know they cover other things besides what you cover. But again, it's the same idea. It's like, here are all the posts on their blog, and here are the most popular ones that do really well in Google, right? So you could spend a few minutes, or maybe I'd spend longer than a few minutes, kind of just looking at this. Like, what are these keywords and what are these topics? Do they fit with what I want to write about? And can I create something better, right? But at least you know, all right, these topics people want to read, right? They want to read about this, and I can potentially get traffic if you were to write a post as well.
Does the site, if you don't mind flipping back a little bit,
yeah,
for the top keyword, those are the keywords that are in the back end of the website, embedded in the blog post. So if someone is typing into Google, for example, in the first one, SSDI,
yeah,
or they're typing in something related to that, and then it somehow connects them.
Yeah. So this column is the main keyword, or the keyword that's bringing them the most traffic, right? So I actually don't even know what that is. SSDI. I'm sure you do.
Social Security Disability Income, SSDI.
Right. So if someone types that keyword into Google, which is a very high volume, apparently this site is ranking number 5th in Google. So that one keyword is bringing them the most traffic. Now, if I were to dive into this, you see this 4276 over here? So let's try to do this live. So if I were to kind of expand that, right? So there's many ways to search for something, right? So SSDI is just one way to search for this, right? Someone might type in SSI disability, right? So that's a different way to search for it. Someone might type in SSI verse SSDI, right? And so on and so forth. Now, Google is smart enough to know that if you're writing about SSDI, but someone else types in SSDI versus SSI, they're smart enough to know that your article kind of encompasses all of these keywords. So that doesn't mean you have to plug your post with 4,276 keywords, right? We don't want to do that because that would just be spammy. It wouldn't make any sense. But once you create a piece of content that kind of, and we'll get into this later, answers questions, it's a very comprehensive and covers the topic in depth, Google will rank you for all of these related keywords kind of automatically, right? Google's smart enough to know that when someone types in what is SSI, well, that's very, very related to what this article's about, right? So they might not even have this keyword in the article, but Google knows what the person is searching for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that helps. So you don't have to have exactly that. I don't have to have exactly SSDI in a blog post. If I have something that Google knows is similar, it'll still connect.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure we're hitting, and we can talk about this kind of in phase 3 of my document. We want to make sure we're hitting the main keyword or the main topic, right? So I don't know if this is a great example or not, but I'm sure they have SSDI in their title, for example, right? Which is a signal to Google that this article is about SSDI. But all of these related keywords down here, right? You don't need to plug every single one of these into your article. It would look like a robot spam, right? It wouldn't make any sense. But Google is very, very smart, very sophisticated, right? They can tie it together. So just because someone searches for what is SSI disability, and maybe that phrase exactly doesn't show up in the article, but Google knows that the article is about that phrase, right? So they'll rank it for that phrase. So yeah, you definitely do not want to stuff your article with 4,000 keywords. It would just look ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
no, that's great, because that kind of takes the pressure off for trying to get it exactly right. Great, thank you. That's helpful.
All right, so we talked about search demand. So I wanted to pull up, I always like to do examples to teach by example. So one of the articles on your site, which is very well written, right? So this is the benefits of ESG investing, right? So back to the thing about search demand. We want to write at least our main title, our main keyword around stuff that people are probably searching for in Google. So what I did is I took a keyword out of your title, or what I think this is about, which is ESG investing benefits, which sounds like what your article is about, right?
Yes.
So I plugged that as a keyword into this tool. And what it's telling you here is that, there's probably not a ton of people searching for this article on Google, right? So it's showing us a search volume here of 0 to 10, meaning, probably a lot of people, there probably aren't many people that are searching for that exact topic, right? The benefits of ESG investing. And then when I scroll down here, so this is just showing us the pages that are ranking in Google for this keyword. It's just showing us inside of the tool. And there's a column here that says traffic. So again, this is the estimated, I want to be clear, estimated traffic to these pages from Google. So, you can rank for this keyword, but this tool is telling us, since no one's really searching for it, these articles aren't even getting traffic, right? So even though this person is ranking #1 for ESG investing benefits, they're probably not getting a ton of traffic. So, and the reason I wanted to show you this is just to keep this top of mind, that we want to, at least in terms of SEO, right? Maybe you have an email list and this article is helpful to people on your email list, which is totally fair and totally fine. Every piece of advice that I'm giving here is strictly Google, strictly SEO, right? There could be other reasons to create this content depending on your blog or your business. Again, maybe an email list. I don't know if this would do well on Pinterest or Facebook, whatever, but that's not what I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about any other medium, strictly Google. So you could tell me, Mike, well, I have an email list and this is a very helpful article for them. If that's the case, that's totally fair and totally fine. Everything that I'm talking about is strictly in terms of Google sending you traffic.
Could it be the term that is maybe the confusion too? Because I know there's multiple terms for ESG, right, Tricia?
There are, and it's also not very well known as well. So people may be looking to do something socially responsible with their investments, but they have no idea what that's called. It's coming into being more awareness now. But I also appreciate your point of there may be some subset of my clients that this article is valuable for, so it's still worth writing and still worth putting on the blog. But it's not something that's going to benefit me from a more higher level Google search.
You guys both made a good point there, right? So I can point out also in this screenshot that we're looking at, again, these are the Google search results. We're just looking at it inside of a tool. So you can see this 5th post here, right? So even though the keyword that I have is ESG investing benefits, look at number 5, right? And the title, the pros and cons, which you just said, of socially responsible investing, right? So they don't have the keyword in the title, and Google knows these are related. ESG and socially responsible investing, which I didn't know, by the way, are related topics, right? So maybe, and again, I haven't dug into this at all, but maybe a better angle that what people are searching for, and again, what they're ranking for here is socially responsible investing. You can see a ton more people actually search for that phrase. And again, Google is so smart that even though my search phrase was ESG, Google is saying this article is probably about the same thing, even though they're using a completely different keyword. So that's another point. Good point.
Mike, that's actually a really great point to keep in mind of keeping the jargon at a minimum, because then not only is Google not going to make sense of it, but the average person probably won't make sense of it either. And it's so easy to fall into using jargon, particularly when you're hyper niched and something makes sense to that niche. But to someone outside of that niche, there might be a more user-friendly way of saying the same thing.
Right. And using a phrase that people are themselves are using in real life, or using when they type something into Google, it's actually, we're using this phrase and not that phrase. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of highlight the whole search demand thing here, is that, when I'm writing content, I want to make sure at least some people are looking for this main phrase in my main topic, because that's how we're going to get people from Google onto our site, is to make sure that we're actually targeting keywords that people are looking for. All right, so let's move to the next phase. Phase 2 was all about kind of finding topics, right, or finding keywords that people are searching for and that align to our niche. So after that, we actually have to go and create the content or write the post, right? So I like to call it phase 3, which is just create. So one thing that I want you to keep in mind is kind of the intent behind the search, right? We call it search intent, right? All that means is that when someone is searching for any specific keyword, why are they searching for that keyword, right? So an article that I pulled up here, I think they're ranking in Google for this. Now, this sounds obvious, but a lot of people miss this, right? So the pros and cons of able accounts. Now, obviously, if someone is searching for that keyword, the pros and cons of able accounts, they want to see a list of pros and cons. I know it sounds so obvious, but so this article does a great job. I wanted to show it as an example of a good example, right? So they have their little introduction here, but then they satisfy the user intent, right? Or why did someone search? Well, they want to see a list of pros and a list of cons. This could probably look a little bit better, but they're satisfying that intent, right? So pros and cons. It's just something I know it sounds almost stupid because obviously I'm going to craft my article about why someone is searching, but it's really easy to get lost, right? Or why you're writing. So user intent is a really big thing because if you write an article targeting a keyword and you get that intent wrong, Google's probably not going to rank you just because it's not why they're searching. Again, it sounds so obvious, but you would be surprised that people just kind of miss the intent. And the best way to figure this out is to just Google your keyword before you start writing and see, again, what is Google ranking on page 1, right? Because if Google's ranking these 5 articles on page 1, well, they've probably done a good job of matching the intent behind the query because otherwise Google wouldn't rank them.
Mike, how does Google know the intent? Does Google look at the title and that's how they judge what the intent is?
I wish I had a more concrete. So to answer your question, what they'll do is they'll study, like they keep track of everything, every click that they get every single day. If an article was ranking number 3 and maybe the intent was not there, well, then a user would click on that article and then go back immediately, right? And then they would go to the next article because it didn't match that intent, right? And so Google keeps track of every single click, every time someone clicks back immediately. And so if I click on an article and I click back after 5 seconds, and then I click another article because that first one didn't answer my question, that's kind of signaling to Google, well, maybe article 4 is actually better than article 3 for this keyword because so many people are clicking away, right? So they can measure user behavior, and that's kind of how they do it. It's like, are people sticking on this page and reading the content? Then it's probably answering the question. But if people are really going back and clicking back and then clicking some other result, it probably didn't answer the question. So that they basically use the behavior, the user behavior.
That makes sense. Okay. So it isn't that they're looking at the words. For example, this one says pros and cons, and they're not trying to match that with the text to see, are they putting pros and cons? Like in this article, they have pro, colon, and the pro, and con, colon. So Google isn't rewarding them necessarily for having the words pro and con within the article, but Google is looking at the user behavior. And when a user came to this article, did they stay on it long enough to read it because it answered their question?
Right. So again, the keyword here would probably be pros and cons of able accounts. So you definitely want to have that, and they have it here right in their title, because this is telling Google, my article is about the pros and cons of able accounts, right? The title is arguably the most important signal to Google. So yeah, you definitely do want to have that in your title and maybe in your first paragraph. And then as you naturally write, right? Pro, con, pro, con. So this is signaling to Google, this is what my article is about. So Google is definitely reading that. The second half of your question is more about the behavior of the user, right? Just because you wrote an article about this and put it in your title doesn't necessarily mean it's a good article that satisfies the user. It's kind of a two-part thing, right? You definitely want to have it in your title, but that's not going to guarantee that a user is going to be satisfied with your answer. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. Thank you.
So again, the way that I like to create content is to basically solve problems and answer questions. That's every time I write an article, it's like, how can I answer whatever questions are related to this topic as simply as possible, as direct possible. Like for me, every piece of content is either answering someone's question, even though it might not be a question, or solving a problem, right? Even though it might not technically sound like a problem. When you Google a keyword, right, on Google, there's sometimes will be a box. It's called People Also Ask. And when you click on the result, it's showing you questions that are related to that keyword. You've probably seen it when you're doing.
I have. It's usually at the bottom of the page, and it's topics related to what you searched.
Related ones at the bottom, and then sometimes if it's like a question type query in the middle of the page or even the top middle, there's a separate like accordion box. It will say People Also Ask. Google is telling us, here are questions that people want answered related to this topic, right? Google's kind of giving us the hint, right? So if you're going to write a topic, or excuse me, if you're going to write a post about Roth RIA investing, Google's telling you, well, here's 5 questions that people want answered related to this topic. I would put those questions in my article and answer them, right? Because Google is saying, people who are interested in this keyword or this topic are also interested in these questions. They want their questions answered related to these. So when I see those pop up when I'm doing like keyword research, I'll put those questions as like header 2s or header 3s in my blog post and then answer those questions. Because that's signaling to Google that, this piece of content is as helpful as possible. It's answering all of these questions. Like at the end of the day, Google wants answers, right? That's really what it comes to. Like that's what a search engine is. It's just answering questions. And so when I'm writing content for my own personal finance site, I always look at those related questions. I'll even make an FAQ at the bottom of my article and just put those 5 questions in and then answer them, right? And I really do think it helps Google understand, well, this article is so comprehensive. Not only is he answering questions related to the main keyword, but he's got an FAQ with 5 or 7 question and answers that's adding additional helpful information. So that's something I always keep in mind when I'm writing content is like, what are the related questions that I can add to my content to help make my blog post as relevant and as comprehensive as possible. All right. One thing that I wanted to call out is kind of the readability of your content. And what I mean by this is kind of like when people are scanning, right? So this is a paragraph when I was just poking around on your site, right? Think about someone who pulls an article up on their phone and maybe they're on the train and they're kind of just scrolling through. Like we want our content to be broken up, right? Chunk it out, right? So what I'm looking at here is just kind of a big wall of text, right?
As soon as you see like tax codes too, section and for, oh my gosh, your eyes glaze over.
This is not like meant to critique. It's just meant to be.
Yeah. No, I fully appreciate it.
So like I have a rule. So I have a freelance writer that helps me out on my site. And I have a rule when I send her my guidelines, absolute max 3 sentences per paragraph. I prefer 2. I need to see white space like after almost every sentence, really, just because that's how people read. I know this sounds stupid, but bullet points, right? Like numbered lists, anything that can break up this content to make it more, not enjoyable, but more, the readability factor, for lack of a better word. I know it sounds kind of silly.
No, I definitely appreciate that. And I full disclosure, I kind of threw this together quickly, but just so it's easier on the eyes, you want to have it broken out. And then if they're looking for a particular, usually someone has a very particular question that they're trying to find the answer to. And if there's headings for the paragraphs within, they can go right to that subheading that answers their particular question.
Yeah, you mentioned another one, which is headings is a huge one, right? So anything to break it up. I'm trying to see if I can just pull up a random example on my site. So I try to, again, 1 sentence and then boom, these are like bullets. So just anything that helps us scan. You'll see how short my paragraph, right? I almost do 1 sentence per paragraph. I know it sounds ridiculous, but people really read. Most of your traffic, it might be mobile, right? They're reading on their phone. They're just scanning really quick. They want to get to the point. So I try to have my headers and, again, short paragraphs. I don't know if there's images, if images are relevant. You don't have to do these boxes, but I do it just anything to break up that flow so people really scan. I think the best way to describe it is scannable content, because you don't want people going back to the idea of Google monitoring everyone's activity. Like when someone lands on your site, you want them to stay on your site, right? You don't want them to hit a wall of text and be like, there is no way I'm reading this giant wall of text. I'm hitting the back button and I'm going to the next.
I wrote it and I feel the same way looking at it. So,
so that's all I mean by that. And the good thing about this, that's a very easy fix. You're literally hitting the enter button and maybe doing some bullets and adding heading. So there's nothing complicated about that. But it definitely, again, we're not just writing for Google. We're writing for the people who are reading our content and reading our site, and we want to make sure that they have a good experience. So let's get to the last phase, what I like to call it. And this is, so let me know, in terms of SEO, do you know about backlinks or getting links?
I do. I know they're super valuable, and the
Yes.
more reputable the site is that you get a backlink for, the better off it is as well.
Yes.
The more reputable you seem to Google.
100% true. So backlinks are one of, if not the most important part of SEO, exactly as you said, because Google takes each link as like a vote, right? So if I link to you, then I'm voting for your site, right? I'm saying Tricia's got a good site. I trust her site. I'm going to send my readers to her site, right? That's what a link is, and it signals to Google, this is a quality site, as long as my site is quality. This is a quality site that I trust. So Google will, eventually over time, on the quality of links, as you said, and the quantity of links, and those links really do help you out. And so I did a little digging, and I saw that, you have a link from the New York Times, which is absolutely insane. I've never gotten a link from the New York Times.
The woman who wrote the article is just an amazing woman, and she really supports other female business owners. So she's great. Just in general, she's a really great person to know.
That's like amazing to get, quoted and featured and linked to from the New York Times. Another one I saw was Business Insider. I don't have the exact link pulled up, but it's somewhere down here, right? And I don't know how you got these, or if you reached out or they reached out to you. But the point is, like, these links help you like tremendously in Google. There's certain way. Have you heard of Help a Reporter Out?
I do. I subscribe to Harrow. Yep.
So especially in the personal finance niche, especially when you kind of have that expertise angle, right? Which is what journalists really, when they're writing about personal finance, and we just have a random example pulled up here, they want to quote people that they can call experts, right? It helps their authority. When they're writing that article, they want to quote reputable people. I use Help a Reporter Out as well, right? I'm not saying you have to go on there every day. I know they send you 3 emails a day, but especially in your niche and with your background, that would be a really good way to try to build more of these links, because it really will help your SEO, because Google pays like so much attention to these links, and especially when you're getting quoted in Business Insider and the New York Times, like those links go a long way. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to spend all your time and Help a Reporter Out, but if you were looking to do more of this, I can guarantee you this link is like insanely valuable for your SEO.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have found mixed. I kind of go back and forth with Help a Reporter Out. Sometimes I feel like I spend a lot of time and energy putting a lot of really well-researched information out there, and I don't hear anything at all. And I don't know where, I know they're busy and they can't necessarily loop back, but it seems like a time sink at times as well.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. Like, it's because I think they get so many responses that it's, maybe they don't have time to write back, or they can only pick a certain amount of responses. Sometimes it's a speed game where, maybe you got to be in the first 5 people to respond. So it can definitely, I understand it's like a time suck that way.
I know I'm on Team FinCon here, but if you take advantage of the Facebook community as well, there's lots of people in there who are writing a lot of articles, some for very reputable sites as well. Would you agree, Mike?
That was my next.
Oh, I see. I should have just stayed silent.
No, but you're 100% right. So the FinCon group is the same, right? There's always big time freelance writers writing for huge personal finance sites, asking for help, right? Asking for experts, asking for expertise, asking for quotes, and they'll tell you, I can link back to your site because they understand the game. So that's another great place to go. It's a great place to network, obviously. Just networking overall with other personal finance bloggers. Maybe you would do a guest post on someone else's blog or get quoted in someone else's blog. But just, I mean, one of the great things about FinCon is just it brings all of these people together where you can make these connections. And if you are providing value and helping and lending a hand and helping someone with their article, that can get your name out there where people will come to you directly to get a quote, and those links will help you out. But, Andy's 100% right. That Facebook group is like a gold mine if you're trying to get quoted.
Mike, you went through a lot of great things right now. I guess I'll let Tricia talk about some of the things that she maybe learned and some takeaways for her to do right after this call.
A couple of things that are quick fixes that I can implement quickly and easily are editing the blogs for readability. Also looking at the jargon and making my words more user-friendly and more accessible to a wider range of people. I think those are quick, easy fixes that I can absolutely do. Being more aware of, as Mike said, what the other restaurants are serving and what are popular items on their menus. As far as getting into, I do, this is a sort of a side note, I do have my site hooked up to Google Analytics. Honestly, I've never looked at it. It just hasn't been on. I'm juggling so many things. I just haven't dived into it yet. But being more aware of what's going on with my website and who's coming and what pages are they going to and that type of thing.
Yeah, Tricia, that sounds exactly right. The other thing is, if you have a second, I would just look at that site speed issue eventually down the line. Just something to keep an eye on because you definitely want your website to load. But everything else you talked about sounds exactly right.
Mike, thank you so much for walking through this detail with us. If people want to connect with you and learn more about what's going on in your world, where should they go?
Yeah, so I blog about SEO, obviously, over at stupidsimpleseo.co. That's .co. I have a free SEO training. It's right there on my homepage. You cannot miss it. So if you want to opt in, it's a free video training series.
Excellent, Mike. Thank you so much for doing this. And then Tricia, where can people learn more about you? And we know the special niche you're in. It's really going to help people, especially in our community that are maybe writing some articles that are specific in your area that maybe want to connect with you. So where's your website and where should people go?
Great. Yeah, no, I would love to help anybody out that's writing about this special niche area of special needs families. And Mike, also, just thank you so much. That was really helpful. I have a website of accessfinancialplanning.com. And I'm working on boosting up my blog. So I also have a Facebook page for my company where I put short, quick information there that might be helpful. But the more robust, more informative blogs are on my website.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for your time. And not only can you guys find Tricia just by typing in her website, but I'm sure in the next 6 months, you're going to find her in the top #1 spot, a lot of these great articles. So thank you both very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks
much.